That's why always the things I'm not sure of. I add the like supposedly or I believe. I may be wrong, but
I heard, I heard
Well,
this
it's
from
funny
many.
because
Kevin told me. These are the things I use. I butcher so many names.
So many. Like now, when he gets it right, it's just a mistake. He goes out of his way now to get it wrong.
yeah, we do it wrong on purpose just to put the actor in
Yeah.
their place, humble them a little bit.
Yeah.
There you go. So, on that note, welcome back to Not a Strong Start, a podcast by filmmakers who talk movies, television, and purposely say actors' name wrong on purpose to humble them. I'm your host, A Nightmare on Dan Street.
I'm not your host. Welcome to Primetime Biatch.
I am Freddie Got Fingered.
Yeah, he is. Jose, you don't have to look me dead in the eyes when you said that.
No, no.
Prime time,
Man,
biatch.
I was definitely looking right at you.
You're looking right. I sensed it. But in case you can't tell, in this week's episode, we're going to talk about the Nightmare on Elm Street franchise. So we're not even going to do the current event. We're just going to go straight to it, right? We got a lot to talk about in here.
Let's do it. Yeah, there's enough. I mean, what we got? Not a franchise that lasted 9 movies so far and had a TV show for a little bit. So there's plenty to talk about.
It kind of sounds like if you had 9 movies, right? And then like how did you not hit the 10? Like that's such a fail, right? Like every franchise strives for 10 once you cross that 6 movie barrier. Like you got to shoot for 10.
Wait, is it
Yeah.
9 including the remake?
Yes, all together.
Oh wow. So technically
Yeah.
it's 8.
Yeah, it's not like we've gotten Freddy Triple X, but when are we gonna get that Freddy X?
Well,
Yeah,
you know
exactly.
what? It's almost like its own nightmare because you just want it to get to 10, but it's not. So you were stuck in this loop of a nightmare where we only got 9 movies.
Aha,
And
aha.
you are right.
Genius.
But
All right. So let's get into it then, right? So let's talk a little bit about the franchise.
we could touch on kind of like the origins of the
Mhm.
franchise, like when it came about. I know we've had these conversations a lot before, but like with Wes Craven, it was just like different bits of things that just came together to create what we got on the first one. I think like one of the things, and correct me if I'm wrong, is I think he had seen some articles in the LA Times
Hmm.
of like teens. There was one specific teen. The story was he didn't want to sleep. The father was trying to give him like pills to help him sleep. He finally fell asleep, ended up dying, and then they found all the pills he was hiding. So this kid was like trying really hard not to sleep. So that was like one of the catalysts that kind of led to
Yeah,
this.
I think I to elaborate on that, I think it was Asian men. I think it was in China. He was hearing about these articles. It was a handful of teenage men in China who were suffering from night terrors. And they were hiding the sleeping pills. The parents found that there was a coffee machine that was hidden in his closet, and and he just didn't want to go to sleep because he says the nightmares are going to kill me. And then one day he went to sleep and his night terror killed him. He actually died in his sleep.
Yeah, that's when the ghost comes back because I told you, Dad. I told you.
I told you. Never listen to me.
So
I
that was
think that's a perfect example of how I mean that's just anxiety. He wasn't killed by a
Yeah.
nightmare. He was killed by anxiety. That's how I'm gonna get taken out.
yeah. But yeah, so he picked up that concept and then he mixed in, he had this bully as a kid who was named Freddy. So that's kind of what we got the game. His tormentor as a child. And then he mixed that up with as a kid. This one time he looked out his window and there was this like creepy guy in a sweater outside in this little alley. And he was looking at him and the guy looked up at him and just kind of like messed with him and stuff, which like freaked him out. Obviously, as an adult, it was still on his mind. So it was like this like algorithm of all these things put together to at least birth this idea.
And what's cool about it is that they say that the color brown and red are the most aesthetically displeasing to the eye. Like it
And that's
causes,
It's
science
green. It's
too.
the green. It's
yes.
green and red, not brown and red. It's green
Oh,
and red.
Yeah.
yeah, there you go. But it's like aesthetically is very ugly to look at. So
Yeah.
you combine the two and it's like, ooh,
Well, if you
nasty.
ever look at them, like it kind of plays tricks on your eyes, where it's almost like a holographic type of thing when you see the two colors next to each other. So yeah, it kind of messes with you.
Hmm.
Yeah, and that, like I said, it's actual science. Like he took that from a study. He saw that study that said that, and it was like, okay, we gotta use this. I think even Elm Street, choosing Elm Street was related to his life. It was the street, it was the main street in the town where he taught. And so he kind of used that. So is that mixed with the fact that there's an Elm Street everywhere
Yeah,
led
yeah.
to him choosing Elm Street?
I also like to think that he chose the red and green. It gave me my own theory that Freddy was killed. You know, when all the parents killed him and burned him
Christmas.
alive, it was at a Christmas party, and that was his Christmas sweater. That's what I like to think.
I thought you
Yes.
were gonna say that the sweater was actually green, but then it was just all the blood from when he got
No,
killed.
man, that's some
Killed him with
accurate
stripes.
blood splatter just in
Dude,
stripes.
they
only
killed
killing
him
in
through a
stripes.
fence.
Yeah.
They
Yeah.
killed him through a fence. Stupid.
Obviously, we're talking about Nightmare on Elm Street. It's been huge for what, over 40 years now.
Mhm.
This thing's like big, but no one wanted to touch it when he had the idea. It took years for anyone to even pick this up. He chopped it, he threw it here, threw it there. No one wanted to touch this movie. They were like, "Killer Dreams, come on."
Yeah. And
And
it's
little did they know.
yeah, seriously. And it seems cool that it's like the culmination of his childhood. You know how they always say with like the great filmmakers, there's always that one passion project or that something that they pull so much from their childhood or who they are as a being. For him, it's Freddy, man. Like maybe that's why I relate. Maybe that's why we relate with it so much. Like there's always something about this franchise that felt deeper than just a traditional slasher film. You know what I mean? Like, sure, he's got the quips that we don't normally see from a slasher, but there was always something about it. There was always like a magic to it on Nightmare on Elm Street that I loved.
And not only was he pulling from things from his own personal life experiences, but something really interesting that they did was being able to involve all the audience members by using nightmares and pulling out elements that everybody would have in a nightmare and putting that into the nightmare sequences, which was really, really cool. It's a great way to bring everybody into it. Because like, oh, everybody's had that nightmare where they can't run. They're like running,
Yes.
standing still. And that was like a reoccurring thing in a lot of the movies.
Yeah, man.
Yeah, and what's cool about it is one of the things I loved about Freddy is like, so we look at the other icons, and it's like Jason Voorhees, don't go to the camp. Michael Myers, don't be related to him or live in that town. Chainsaw Massacre, don't go to the South.
Yeah.
But like Freddy, you can sleep.
Yes.
He
You know
can't
what's
escape
crazy?
him.
I was working with a kid once. I think I told you guys this before, but he loved Freddy Krueger. He loved drawing pictures of Freddy Krueger. And I just wanted to make sure that I'm like, that Freddy's not real, right? It's just movies. And he goes, yeah, but he kills you in your nightmares. So if you watch A Nightmare on Elm Street and Freddy Krueger appears in your nightmare when you go to sleep, doesn't that make him real? And I just went, like, so you really could get killed by a night terror if you were like deathly afraid of Freddy Krueger and you had a night terror and you just died from anxiety. Freddy Krueger got you, dude.
Dude, he got you. And that was always a fear, at least to me as a kid, where they always say like if you died in your dreams, you could die in real life. Now maybe there's science that proves that you kind of get out of it or whatnot. But if you're not, there's always that fear like, well, if my body and my mind think that I die, won't the body then follow that? Like, won't I really die in my sleep? And that's how they really capture you that way, because you always have, you have Jason, you have Michael Myers, you just outrun them. You outrun them, and it's like, okay, let me get in the car, let me drive really far, let me fly to Hawaii. But with Freddy, you can't escape him no matter where you go. Like,
no,
it's
you can't.
Scary.
And I didn't feel like that was the main thing that scared me so much as a kid. It was just the Freddy character itself, because he enjoyed torturing you. He's like laughing when he's killing you. We never saw that with Michael Myers, Jason Voorhees, or any of the other killers. They were just silently killing you. Freddy was enjoying it. He was laughing, and it was like twisted for me to see that as a kid. And it was just like really, it was terrifying.
Yeah, because the other one, it was like you open the door, Jason's there, you're probably getting taken out right away within like 2 seconds.
Yeah.
Right away. Not Freddy. Freddy, you go in the dream, he can literally take you out in the first few seconds. But he was like, now I'm gonna enjoy this. Let this marinate for a little bit. Run a
Yeah.
little, run a little.
Yeah.
I'm gonna make you think you defeated me, and I'm gonna come back as Super Freddy and like
Do you
take
have
you out. Like it's the little mind games.
He's a
Do you have
cat.
any idea how embarrassing it is to be murdered while the person who's murdering you is laughing at you? Like,
Yeah. Like
they're laughing at you.
not only is he killing you, he's insulting you in the process. So it's
Yeah,
like
it's
you're
like,
Yeah.
hurting
come
my
on, man.
feelings and you're hurting my body.
He called me the B word while he killed me.
Before he expired me.
Yeah.
At that point, you're just like, please, please, just take me out already. So
Yeah.
that
You're bullying me too
that's how I
much.
know that Pennywise wouldn't be able to handle Freddy, because as soon as Freddy will start mocking him, he'll get defeated.
Yeah, I know. All right. So let's get into the thoughts. Like what are your thoughts on the evolution of Freddy throughout this franchise?
The main one that I could think of just off the bat when we were watching all of them was how much his makeup changed from movie to movie. I
Hmm.
felt like in the first three movies, his skin and everything looked like burnt and it had like a shine, like it felt like real skin. Where after part three and on, it felt like his skin felt very dry. It looked like professional makeup rather than somebody who was mutilated, burned, and everything like that. The first three movies I thought really nailed that. And then after that, you could see the makeup. It just felt like makeup. It didn't feel real.
And I think, and I do remember part of that, especially with like part five, they were on such a deadline to get it out. They didn't really have a lot of time to do it, that they took a lot of shortcuts when
Mm.
they did five. And part of that was the makeup, where they sacrificed the makeup to make it easier, simpler, because they were on such a tight schedule.
Yeah, but spray some shine stuff on there. Make it look like it's been
Some
burnt.
glow.
But
Yeah.
but no, but the thing is, like the actual like even in those movies, it was like professionally made. It looked really
Mhm.
interesting, but it just looked too, when something's too perfect and you don't believe it.
Yes.
That's what
I,
it felt
I
like to
I
me.
think some of that too, Kev, is that in the first three, it seems like they kept him more as like a boogeyman in the
Yeah.
sense where they put him a lot in darkness.
Yeah.
So even a lot of the makeup was kind of hidden. It seemed like from part four on, you see him a lot in daylight. You saw him a lot in like bright lights, especially six. He's just right there in the sun, right outside. Like, so he's just very exposed. They weren't trying to hide any elements. At that point, it wasn't so much that he was a boogeyman and he was terrifying. The
Yeah.
tone of his character completely changed, and it became more like a comedy at that part. Like, you want to watch him kill? Let's watch him kill. And at
Yeah.
that point, it wasn't trying to make him scary anymore.
I agree with that with the light and darkness, but even
Mhm.
then I did think about that. You could still see, even when he was in the shadow, you could still see like
Yeah.
the
Oh,
shine
100%.
on the makeup. Like it,
Hmm.
it, it looked way different.
Yeah, I totally agree
Yeah.
with that. Especially when you have a new nightmare, they completely revamped the aesthetic
Yes.
design. I
Yes.
really like how they did that. I really love how the way that they set it up, right? Like you clearly saw an evolution where part one was very horror. Part
Hmm.
two, that even the look, like I always love how when you see him tear off his skin,
Yeah.
and you see that part of it, they went very horrific on it. When you started to get to part three, that's when it became more like a show. It became more comedic that they started adding to it. I love how A New Nightmare completely tried to go back to part one again with the tone of it. It felt more
Yeah.
horrific, and it felt like they tried to make him a lot less quippy, and they try to
Well,
go
because if
back to
if
him being a horror.
well, the concept of that one is that it took place in our world and that the movies were
Yeah.
created to keep the demon hidden, to keep it
Yes.
trapped and contained. And so the Freddy that we got in that movie wasn't really Freddy Krueger. It was the nightmare demon that just took the shape of Freddy.
Freddy.
And
Yeah.
I feel like that's what made that more like serious, a little bit more frightening. And I actually like that they gave him a trench coat in that. I thought that was
Yeah.
pretty interesting. And I think that was the actual aesthetic, Jose, that you were talking about when Wes Craven was a kid and he looked out his window and he saw that drunkard in the alley. He was wearing a trench coat and a fedora. And I feel like he pulled a little bit more from that in that movie.
Even the
It is.
glove in that one was really cool. I like how it wasn't so much like a glove, but it was like his bones. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
Almost
it
like
was
it
popping
Yeah.
through
fused.
his fingers. It was
That
a
was
part of it
so
was his
dope.
hand. It
I
was his
loved it.
hand.
Even his eyes were milky white. Like we've never seen that in any of them. Like
Yeah.
really cool, man. I really like the aesthetic design. I love how they completely revamped it and made it feel fresh.
Hmm.
Yeah, and you made a good point how I feel in this franchise there was such a fluctuation and up and down on tones as you went throughout. So, you know, you have one that will try to get more serious and darker. Then you had some that got more cartoonish, and they'll go back to try to be more serious. Because even with we saw with the last two, five tried to get a little more serious and deal with more adult and serious themes in there, even though Freddy was still Freddy, but they
Yeah.
tried to get a little more like that. And then six said, no, let's go back to being really cartoony and let's do some Looney Tune stuff.
Literally
And,
Looney
Yeah.
Tunes.
yeah. And then New Nightmare came and went back to serious. And you get that throughout the whole series from one all the way to the end, where it's like, all right, we're gonna make them more scary and darker and be, you know, have these heavier themes, and then let's have fun, and then let's go back to this, then let's have fun. And I think that it made the series, as if you look at it as a whole, it is pretty uneven because
Yeah.
of that. There wasn't one tone throughout the entire thing.
Well, I think that also reflects on just your dream state in general. I mean, you jump from dream to dream and they all have different themes and tones. And so sometimes you have like a really bad nightmare, and then sometimes you don't even know that your dream is a nightmare because it feels so funny and goofy, and then, you know, crazy stuff happens. But I will say that it's notoriously known that part two is the worst one, right? At least that's not your favorite, Jose, of the series, part two. And
Is it?
I was
Oh,
watching
I have
them
a
all. I
worse one.
agree. I agree. There was a lot of cringy stuff about part two, but overall, I like part two way better than 4 and 5. I'm
To
gonna
me,
just
six
go out and
was
say it.
I hated six, man. The whole
Which one was
cartoony
6?
Looney Tunes. It's not
Oh, Freddy's
the
dead,
Dream
right?
Child. Freddy's Dead, the final nightmare. That's the
I
one that had
actually
Roseanne and Tom
liked that one a
Arnold.
lot as a kid.
Hate
I
it.
liked that one. But
Yeah,
there are
but
some things
rewatching it
about that I
now,
really like.
rewatching it now, I'm like, this is pathetic. Like, I don't even know what the hell I'm
Oh
watching.
man, two was so two was a money grab. That's the thing, because the producer Bob, he leveraged so much on the
Yeah.
first movie, pretty much everything, and it was successful that he, even though the movie was successful, he didn't really make profit off of it. So two was a money grab. Wes didn't like the script when he saw it for two, but since he signed over the rights
He had no
to
choice.
the Nightmare, they moved on without him, and that's what we got, the crap movie that we got from part two. But that's all that was. It was just like, I need to make money back, and this movie was big. It wasn't about making a good movie. They just, everything that they built, they just tore it up.
Yeah.
I agree with you.
Yeah.
And I'm talking strictly from just an entertainment point of view. I don't think the story was great at all. There was a lot of cringy stuff in there, but overall, entertainment wise, I was laughing at the bad parts. At least in this in this movie, I was laughing at the bad parts. When the coach gets killed in the shower, like, it's so embarrassing. It's just really bad. But I did like some of the gore in that. I did you know, but I mean, there's just stuff at the end. I remember I was watching it. I was texting you, Jose. I'm like, the way that she starts hitting him, like at the end of part two, I just couldn't stop laughing. I'm like, like the way she's stabbing him. She's like, I'm like, what's wrong with this movie, dude? It was so bad.
Yeah, I even had a note that said Meryl Streep looking chick. Like,
Yeah.
she kind of looked like Meryl
She
Streep
did
a
look
little
like
bit.
Meryl Streep.
Dude, but if I'm gonna defend this one a little bit, I completely agree with you guys. It's not great. It's clearly not. It's way on the bottom of the spectrum. But this one took more of a psychological horror to me that the other ones just didn't do. So I appreciate the fact that it did something different to it. The reason why I had such issue with part 6, bro, you literally casted Roseanne and Tom Arnold in a bit part just to get pure comedy. You had the Looney Tunes Wile E. Coyote thing in the middle of the street with a bus. Like, what are we talking about here? I'm like, this isn't horror. Like, it's literally a comedy. Like, this isn't at all what I wanted.
The director of that one was it was one of the producers that was been on since the beginning.
Yeah.
They finally gave her, you know, hey, why don't you go direct this one? And she did do that. And like, you know what? It didn't bother me because we've had good scary Freddy, and I'm willing to see other things. And I actually didn't hate that one as much as you do, Dan.
Yeah,
there is actually a dream sequence from that movie that I think we'll talk about later.
Yeah, that one stores my lower thing, but I don't know too. Just, I always go back to that scene in the pool party where Freddy just hops in and all these
hey,
like
buddy.
that just took away all the scare aspect of Freddy when he's just there in the pool, like you're all my children.
Yeah.
And then no one runs. They're all just
No.
there, like, who is this creepy guy over there?
I
He
just
brought
like
free
that one
beer.
jock who was just like, easy, buddy, it's okay. Nobody here wants to hurt you. I'm like,
Yeah.
what part of this man thinks that like he's afraid of you, dude? Like, come on, dude.
Oh my god, that's so bad. The parakeet, the dumb dance in the
parakeet.
room,
I
like
wrote that, yeah.
ah.
The parakeet dead. It's so fun. That made
Well, I
I was
will say-
laughing. I was laughing my butt off when I saw the parakeet dead, like literally in tears, holding my stomach. That's great.
That is how I clean my room from now on, just so you know. Same song, same dance moves. I close all my drawers by like bumping my butt into it, you know, like
I guess
funny.
that scene ended up becoming popular at the time. And it was played at like gay clubs and parties.
Yeah.
They would play that scene to whatever music was playing, so it became iconic.
But still, man, the whole skin pulling to reveal the brain was one of the cool. I thought it was one of the coolest visuals, like makeup wise,
really
prosthetic designs. That was amazing, bro. You got to give the props there. It looked really cool.
That was cool. And then him coming out, Freddy coming out of the body.
Yes,
that
had
was
some
cool
cool
too.
prosthetic designs.
That was so awesome.
Yeah.
And I think that's the thing. Each of these movies has something cool. We can pull something cool from them, minus the remake. We could pull something cool from almost all of these movies, you know?
I can actually pull cool stuff out of the remake.
Yeah.
I can too.
It's not a ton.
No.
But there's a reason why the reboot is actually, and we'll do this when we do our rankings.
Okay.
It's not the lowest one for me.
Ooh, okay.
But thankfully, part 3 came out. Dream Warriors, to this day, still my favorite besides the original. Of course, you got to give respect to the original. Is Dream Warriors. Not the most financially successful out of the series, but I think the most critically successful out of the series overall.
Well, it was just such a great concept. I mean, kids ganging up to work together to go into each other's nightmares. I mean, like that was just such a cool concept. And like especially when they get all their dream powers. What's your dream power? Everything like that was just so cool. Why didn't people do more of that in nightmares, you know?
It doesn't make sense, but then some of the powers were lame. Like, that's what you come up with? I would have come up with something cooler than this. But I had a note that said they went to one layered characters, but like in a good way, right? Because when you get these kind of like Dream Warriors, which is still my favorite of the franchise, my favorite as a kid, I love that the characters are more one-dimensional. It makes it easier. The actors able to flush them out a little bit with these one-note characters. And like, you already know what they're going to say. They had a little quippy thing and their powers match what their personality was. I loved it, man. Yeah, part 3 was fun.
No, it was so good. And it was like, because for that one, Wes Craven was part of like the first script. But he had to drop out because he was doing some other, I think, Deadly Friends. I think it was. He was doing this other project. So
another project that wasn't as good as Nightmare on Elm Street Part 3 Dream Warriors.
Nope, it wasn't. So then, someone else came in. They adjusted the script, and that's what we got from it. But yeah, it is cool. I think watching that as a kid, because you want to have your own powers as a kid. I mean, even as an adult, you still think about having powers.
Yeah.
So I remember as a kid watching the first Freddy and be like, oh, well, I would do this to Freddy and I'll do that to Freddy. And then part 3 came out and you see them having these like abilities and powers. It's like, it is possible. You can take on Freddy.
Well, I think you have to be like conscious of that you're in a dream for you to have that. See, the thing is, whenever I know that I'm in a dream, my body automatically wakes me up. But this brings on to, I think this was, I'm not sure which concept for which movie this was for, whether it was the original sequel idea or what, but, or Freddy vs. Jason, that Freddy became so depowered that teens would go to sleep and meet up in their nightmares just to go find Freddy and beat him up. Like that was a really cool, interesting idea. I thought was like kind of cool. I'm like that because he was so powerless. They would just go into the nightmares and beat him up. And I think it was another concept where they, the original concept for part 2 was that it was going to be revealed that Freddy was actually innocent. He didn't actually kill any kids. He wasn't the Springwood slasher, and being Freddy Krueger was his revenge on that.
Well, they did that in the remake, right? They hinted at that
No,
about him being innocent, right? Because that's
I
what
think so.
yeah, that's what the
They
kids
they
were
they
saying. Like,
threw
oh,
that
he's
out
in it.
there.
They
They
threw that
didn't
out there.
definitively say either way. But yeah, it's funny that first idea that you mentioned, that was one of the scripts that was put out for part six.
Okay, yeah.
For the final one, it was actually co-written by Peter Jackson.
Oh,
And
really?
that yeah, and that was one of the possibilities they went, but then instead they fell that producer turned director felt that the Freddy's dead one, the last nightmare, fit more with her vision of what she wanted to do. So
Gotcha.
they shut down Peter Jackson's script. But then they ended up having that's what led to his relationship with them that led to like Lord of the Rings and all of that.
Could you imagine turning down Peter Jackson? No, thank you, sir. Good day. Go have some
Yeah.
potatoes.
Yeah. So six probably could have been very different and probably a lot better if they would
Yeah.
have gone with that
Man,
concept. Which
would have
when
been
I thought
great.
about it, I liked it. I like when they did certain things like that with the dream to explain it, like such things as Freddy has no power because no one's remembering him, so there's no fear. Like little things like that. I like it where his power depends on people fearing him and people knowing about him. Without that, he's powerless. So I
Yeah.
really enjoy that aspect that they touched on throughout the series.
Well, that's what they really focus on Freddy vs. Jason, which I thought was such a great idea for the story. I just didn't think it was executed as well as it could have been, but I thought overall as a story and a script it was such a good way to bring those two
Way.
characters together. I didn't like the casting choice of Jason for that movie. I really wish it was Kane Hodder, and I didn't like the choice of CGI blood. It was CGI everything. It didn't feel like the 80s slasher, you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. But it
I
did for what they did, because it was clearly going to be a money grab, right? Freddy
Yeah.
versus Jason. I thought they executed that way better than I thought, and I think it
Yeah.
actually holds up, and it actually better than what I first saw it. Like I actually appreciate it the more I watch it. They had some really cool deaths, but that concept, the idea of you need to send this guy out to go make yourself be feared more, using him as a tool, but of course you can't control Jason. It's
No.
such an interesting concept,
For
man.
me,
Great.
the actors are really annoying in that. I don't know why. I just want to punch
Uh,
John Ritter in the face. Like I just don't. I don't like. I don't like him. I don't know why. And I can say that because I have the most punchable face, and that's okay.
that's the thing with that movie and just rewatching it, like I enjoy it, I'm entertained, but I'm also disappointed about it at the same time.
Yeah.
And rewatching it again, it just reinforces that if you take this movie and you cast more competent actors in these roles and you clean up the third act, you have a great movie there.
Mhm.
Because especially like those that first half of that I felt was really strong and everything. You have to get past the terrible acting
Yeah.
that's on all fronts. On all fronts. It's not just like the lead, it's like all of them
Yeah.
uh, in there where Jason emotes better than the actors in
Yeah.
this.
And he was just Frankenstein, which drives me crazy because he didn't do anything that Kane Hodder couldn't do. That's what I don't get. Maybe he was just taller, I guess.
Maybe cheaper.
Yeah,
That's what
cheaper,
I'm thinking.
maybe.
It's probably cheaper because they even use CGI blood, so they probably
Yeah.
went cheaper with this one.
Well, no, because I actually saw a documentary and the filmmaker was talking about, it's like, I wanted my guy. I didn't, they were trying to, apparently they were trying to get Kane Hodder to do it, the studio, but
Thought he
the
won his own guy. Like, really, what's the like? I mean, Kane Hodder, like he is that. So why do you need your own
that would have
guy?
been such a huge selling factor that would have gotten people in the seats. Cause it's
Yeah.
at that point, it's like a fight. You've been seeing these two characters for a long time, and Kane Hodder played him for what, like 4 movies or so, and it was like
Mhm.
watching it was like a cage match when you see the two fighters
It
facing
did,
off
man.
on TV, getting ready for it. This would have just been a huge selling point if they just casted Kane Hodder as Jason for that movie.
And all of a
He
sudden,
probably
Freddie knew karate.
Yeah,
It's like
oh
they
yeah.
put him in there, and all of a sudden he's like amazing at karate. This badass fighter. Like, where did this come from? But okay,
Well, no.
sure.
Well, yeah. Well, he picked it up from part four.
ooh,
For
Street
this
Master.
actually
That's where
actually brings
that's where he picked it up, because remember he did kill the martial artist. So
That's
at one
true.
point
He
he did
absorbed
have him
him.
inside him.
There you go. He absorbed
this
the
this
spirit.
this brings me to a theory I had about Freddy. Just real quick, I'll go into it
Mhm.
because almost in every movie they would pull Freddy out of the nightmare and into our world.
Every movie.
And,
I feel like
it's
every
like
movie.
weird that like how can you pull something out of your dream? What else can I pull out of my dream? If I get $1 million and I wake up, can I pull it out? So it made me think that Freddy wasn't really invading your dreams. He was in the spirit world that could lure you out of your body through the dream. So he would originally start to go into your nightmares just to pull you out, almost like people who would
Like an
do
astral
remote
projection.
viewing, astral projection. That's what I think is happening. And like, so he's not killing you in your nightmares. He's invading your nightmares and pulling you out into the spirit world and killing you there. And that's how they can pull him out into our dimension.
Dude,
So
that also makes sense why if he doesn't have power and people don't fear him, he doesn't have the power to pull you from your dream at that point. So that would make sense, right? Because the dream is the dream, whether you believe in him or not. Technically, he shouldn't empower him if you fear him more in your nightmare.
Which we noted like during Freddy versus Jason, when he wasn't powerful enough where he couldn't even swipe someone.
yeah.
And that does fit, because one of the things that we saw in multiple movies, it was souls that he was taking. It was the kids' souls that were in him and making him more powerful.
So yeah,
You know
so
what?
I think when you're battling Freddy,
that's not a theory
not
anymore.
In your
That's reality. We solved it. Good job, Kevin.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I was excited.
I think one of the things that I like, and then just rewatching it again, it reminded me, it was like, in the end, like, yes, he died multiple times. I feel Freddy won.
Yeah.
Because
yeah,
he wiped out every kid of the people who took him out. And that was the thing. They weren't surviving much. If they survived one movie, they weren't surviving much into the next movie, at least for the first, I feel. So in the end, he accomplished his original mission.
yeah.
And then he failed in other missions. But his original one, he did it.
Tales from the people's perspective. It's just the stories of all the souls that Freddy has taken. And so he never really dies because he's already dead. How do you kill something that's already dead?
You can't.
You cannot.
So in part 5, this is the note I wrote down. It looks like a giant turkey. That little kid that's in it from Jurassic Park. I'm like, this kid's in it? Come on.
And that's why I said I liked 2 better, is because I can't even really pull anything from 4 and 5 that I really just remember so much. I mean, there's some cool things in there.
Comic book nerd kill was like kind of interesting, I guess. You slice them up in like little papers.
Well, for part 5, I like the concept of her adapting the abilities and the personality of her friends that were taken out. For part 4, I do like that concept, and I do like that you see that in the character. How she is at the beginning, this like shy, timid, daydreaming girl, is not who she is at the end, where you see she's picked up some of those traits, not even just the skills themselves, but personality wise.
But overall, as a movie, I mean, those are cool aspects. But overall, as a movie, they were kind of forgettable for me.
Yeah, and the one-liners became really bad in those ones. Where like they weren't even funny. Like they were just really bad one-liners or being overused. I'm like, all right, guys, calm it down a little bit. Let's calm it down. Let's try to make this a little horrific. So I'll make this a stand-up comic.
Funny story about that one, about part 4 with the boyfriend, the martial arts one. When it came time to do like his death, they had like no money left.
Nothing.
At all. They had like no budget left to make the movie. So they were like, what are we gonna do? That's why Freddy is not in that scene. It's just the glove. And they literally just took a room and they're like, just put a bunch of sheets up, make it look Japanese from it. And he rehearsed like all these martial arts moves for that scene. And then they told him after, just start swinging.
Well, that's how Freddy learned karate.
But I feel the franchise I remember there was multiple movies where it just seemed overall disorganized. They were, didn't have completed scripts. They were on a fast timeline where there was already a release date before the script is even done. They were filming things like 2 weeks before the movies came out. And that that happened in 4, 5 had production issues, 6 had production issues. So there was a lot of and then we know 2, but for most of them, there was always some kind of production disorganization.
Well, it feels like that's a lot of just horror movies in general because they're just they just make them fast. They pump them out. They don't care because they're a certain genre that's just meant to scare you. And I feel like those ones are rushed a lot because they're supposed to be easier to make for studios. You know what I mean? But you
Mhm.
know, when you talk about Nightmare on Elm Street with all the prosthetics and all the special effects and new inventive ways to kill people, like that's that takes some time. A really
Yeah.
cool
It
way to
does.
kill somebody.
One thing that was cool is that they really got each of the movies had music that really captured the era that it came out in. Like I thought the music choice was pretty good overall for this franchise. Um, let's talk about the remake, man. To me,
Yeah.
when I watch the remake, as soon as I see Freddy and it's not Robert Englund, it's immediately jarring to me. And I wrote down
Yeah.
he looks like a hairless cat.
He looks
Like
like a monkey.
but yeah, it's like the nose, like it's the prosthetic looks weird. He's little, like he's just shorter. Like everything about that movie is feels slow to me. It feels boring. I wrote down it feels like Twilight. Like it
Well,
feels very
he didn't
slow moving.
he didn't really taunt anybody in their dreams. He was just there, you know?
Yeah.
He's like, I'm pretty. I'm pretty. Like that's
Yeah.
it. He didn't mess with you in your nightmares until you got more into like the third act where I felt like it started to become a little bit more Freddy like. But just overall as a character, I mean, like that just goes into how great Robert Englund was because he had this weird kind of silly kind of like twisted sense of humor that went into it where I felt like this guy was just trying to be scary rather than just being twisted in your own mind and having fun doing something messed up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that movie was bad on so many levels besides the character design and the lack of personality from Freddy himself. It was so these movies when you do a remake or a reboot, I feel there is a balance between paying homage to the original and staying true to a level to the original, but
Hmm.
also putting in new ground and changing things a little bit, getting a little creative with it. There has to be a balance there. And this one just went straight into we're gonna replicate pretty much the same death and scenery
Yes.
that we got from the original movie. Like there wasn't the creativity was not there.
The
It
glove in the
was
bathtub. Like it was the
yeah,
exact
glove
same
in the
thing.
Yeah.
bathtub, the
Tail in the
body in
bed.
the body bag. So
Yeah.
all those little things like that were just like
In
creation.
the
Like it wasn't to
wall.
the yeah, it
Hmm.
wasn't to the level of Psycho, but you know, it wasn't too far off of pretty much trying to go shot for shot when it came to the imagery that they were putting out there.
There was only one really cool shot I liked in the movie that I thought that finally the series did it very believable. I mean, not very, but it was that one of the last nightmare sequences where she's running around the house and all of a sudden the hallway just turned into sticky floor and she kind of fell into it. I thought that was probably at that moment. I'm like, now it feels like a Nightmare on Elm Street movie a little bit. That was the closest it started to feel like that, and the best use, one of the better uses of that aspect of a dream where you're sinking into the floor or you're getting stuck into the floor. I thought that was I was like, whoa, that was actually pretty cool. And then it felt like he was toying with them a little bit more. I think he actually called her the B word at that point. I
Hmm.
forget. um but I remember liking that sequence the most out of the entire movie.
Yeah.
I think my favorite sequence and something I think that movie did well, that if they do it again, they should incorporate it again, was the micro nap transition aspect of it. And I think that really worked in the supermarket because she was like so tired. And we've all been there when we're so tired that we fall asleep for like 2 seconds and don't even realize it. We think we were awake,
Yeah.
even if we're doing something.
Hmm.
So you see her in the supermarket as she's like on the ground going back, and she's going between real world and dream world, and you see the it
Yeah.
go
Hmm.
supermarket boiler, and him appearing and disappearing. I was like, that's really cool. Because in the original, you get the thing
Yeah.
happening, and then you don't realize until they're getting attacked that they were in a dream. But here, you're actually seeing the transition back and forth as she's waking up and falling asleep. That was my highlight from the reboot. That I
Yeah.
was like, okay, that was well done.
I like how they went a little grounded with it, because if you're going to make a remake, it's like what you talked about. You want to kind of change the tone a little bit. They went a little more grounded with it. If they would have went Robert Englund again, even though we know, he was done playing the character, but if they would have went with that, it wouldn't have seemed so jarring. Look at Freddy. I think I would have accepted the movie way more easily. I think that's just what threw me off, is that was so obviously not him. But the fact that they made it grounded, the fact that maybe he was innocent, and they actually leaned into that story a little bit, or at least threw it out there.
He wasn't, though.
No, I agree. I'm just saying the fact that they threw that nugget out there was interesting, because it made the characters pause and actually look at the parents saying, well, you guys were wrong. I thought that was a cool dynamic.
When it comes to that, I felt like maybe they went, and this is where you kind of blur the lines a little bit, when they went into the actual evidence of him actually molesting the kids, and like that's what he did in the originals.
Yeah,
but they never said on it. And then you start to think, it's like, wow, Freddy was my favorite
in the original. That's what he was supposed to be. Yeah. And then they were like, you know what, we shouldn't go in that direction. There was some overtone, but they were like, let's just he's gonna be a murderer and all of that. This one was like, we're gonna lean into that. You know what? Put a spotlight on that. I don't think people can see that.
Do we have some Polaroids? Let's have some hidden Polaroids where they're all freaked out and looking at themselves as kids. Like that was really messed up.
Yeah, which murder isn't great, but it's a whole other level once you take it to that, and it involves kids. So it makes it even harder to kind of
cheer on the character.
Yeah, kind of, right? cheer on the character in that way. But I think the thing that makes that movie very hard to watch for me, it's the delivery by Freddy. Like it's like always in like slow motion, where it's just like, I am going to kill you. Yeah. And it was like, why are you telling everything in slow motion? Everything was just stretched out, every word, every syllable, very slow, very deep. And it was like, all right, get on with it. Like,
it was just Rorschach. You were getting killed by Rorschach.
Yeah. Especially when you saw him in like the flashback scenes. He didn't talk so slow. He didn't seem so slow. He's there bouncing around with the kids in the park or whatever it was. So why all of a sudden is he now drawn out and brooding? Like, I get the dude got burned and he's killed, but he just seemed like a very different character. You know what I mean? I don't know. No, didn't like it. So, all right, let's get into our favorite Freddy kills.
Okay.
What of the entire franchise? What's your favorite? Ooh, there's a lot. So let's just name.
There's a lot.
Yeah.
I'll have to throw out there. I'm about to go with, because it's my favorite movie of the series. I'm about to go with Dream Warriors. I'm gonna go with the puppet scene. Yes,
that was really cool.
Yeah. From the beginning, with him coming off the wall, and then just how visceral that scene is when it's like the veins, and
you could feel it, huh? You could feel it when you watch it, like, oh,
yeah, and that helplessness where he's like walking through and no one's doing anything, like,
because you kind of cringe when you're seeing it happening, because that's one of those kills where you can actually like physically imagine what it might feel like.
Yes. Yeah. Especially the feet, you know what I mean? Like, you see the hand, but when they pull the feet out, it's like, something about that just feels cringy. Yeah. Here's one that I had. So definitely the marionette one was probably my favorite, but here's one that I kept remembering as a kid, was the hearing aid.
Dude, you stole that from me. That was literally the one I was going to mention.
Oh, with a pin drop, like that gives me the same creepy and the cringe that the marionette does, where you have no control over it. And I think playing around with the senses is what gets me, right? Like, it's so gross.
Well, what stood out about that one specifically was that he actually used his fear. You know what I mean? The puppet one, the dude wasn't afraid of puppets. He just liked puppets. Yeah. But for the hearing aid one, the dude was afraid with his mom because she made him deaf from like always cleaning out his ears. And then Freddy puts on this scary spider looking hearing aid, and he's killing him by using his fear of like the pain of his ear. And I thought that was just, even as a kid, that stuck with me. You know what I mean? Yes. I just thought that it was really cool.
It really did, man. Like, that's the death that would stick with me the most out of the franchise ever since I was a little kid. It was that one.
And he was still messing with him. You know, he drops that one pin, and he catches it. He's like, oh, yeah. And Freddy's like, ah. And
that's the Freddy. That's the ultimate Freddy kill, right? I'm going to use that. Like, because we get the funny ones with the girl that's the drug addict, right? In Dream Warriors, and he comes in with like the needles, but that's just more comedy to me. Like, it looks ridiculous when you see it. Like, I laugh. I like the kill. Don't get me wrong. but there's nothing cringe about it, right? Like we're not affected by that. We're not needle users. So, it didn't really have an effect, but it was just more funny. You get those ones and they're like legit cringe.
So I'll go with another one that I think is still like to this day one of the visually aesthetically pleasing kills was what was her name, Beth, from the first one, when she's being dragged all over the room. And then because you know what went into making that scene, they had to build an entire rotating room and blood going everywhere, and like you can just you really had to sell that to the audience because Freddy wasn't in that one. It was the dude was awake watching her getting dragged all over the room, and it was her performance that's just like, dude, can you name anybody else who had a better death performance? Like, hey, you got to sell everybody on your death, and it was just her, just crawling around, screaming, and then finally, when her body just drops onto the bed, onto the pool of blood, and just splatters everywhere, it was so cool. And they used the same room for Johnny Depp's scene. His death scene when he gets dragged into the bed and the blood, falling from the. It was just such a cool death.
I would say the second time they used that room, that blood ended up being too heavy, and the thing started collapsing, and the wires started sparking, and they were like, "Uh-oh."
They were saying that they could still hear and smell the blood splashing around in their room, like in their memory. I'm like, oh man, that must have been crazy. But it's those feats that, especially as filmmakers, that you look at the effort that came into making a shot like that just makes the death scene just so much cooler. Because like, I mean, at some points you can kind of see that it's a rotating room because it's over the dude's shoulder, and you can kind of see him just kind of keep his balance, like where he is as the room is spinning. But still, it was just so effective.
Dude, that's what I was gonna say. It's like when you have horror movies and you talk about all horror movies, the most iconic horror movies, there's certain deaths that become so iconic in terms of horror movie deaths. I believe the two that you just mentioned, her body getting dragged and the Johnny Depp, the blood just squirting onto the roof, are so iconic. Despite us having other kills that we think are, more fun, more fascinating to watch in this franchise, those are the iconic visual deaths that you see. Just great, brilliant filmmaking, man. Great filmmaking.
And that's the thing with the first one. We have to give it so much respect. Even though Dream Warriors is my most fun one to watch, like I feel the first one is still the best one because of those visuals. From the deaths and everything, and even just even before the deaths, the visuals that they would put out there to kind of creep everyone off. And it's like when you look at it, I remember saying they had like 80 effect shots for like a 90-minute movie that they did in under 30 days for like those things. Like the respect for the work that went into that first one.
Absolutely, man.
What do you guys think were what was the dumbest death in the entire franchise?
Man,
I think it's the coach in part 2 in the shower. It's just so, I remember pausing and laughing at it so much because it felt like just an embarrassing way to die. Like, like if you were dragged all over the room and you were dead, you'd be like, okay, like that's scary. But like, imagine if everybody found you just in like the leather strapping from the gay club, and you're just in the shower like that with your butt hanging out. His butt was hanging out. I don't know.
So let's rank the movies then. What's your order? And I'm sure we're all gonna have very different answers because you can't really go wrong. Well, I guess you can go wrong if you pick some of the bad ones as your favorite, but it really just depends, right? Like it depends what kind of tones you like, what kind of deaths you like. How do you guys rank them?
I feel as we get to the second half of our list, that's where the differences are gonna happen.
Maybe. So, I don't know. I don't know.
So I had Nightmare on Elm Street #1, the original, started it all. Gotta give it the visuals, the effects, the kills, everything worked about that one. Then Dream Warriors after that. This was a sequel that, it grew the franchise, grew the mythology, stayed true to the characters, and gave us new good characters. Then I have to go New Nightmare as my third one. Underrated, was released before its time, but so damn good. Then Freddy versus Jason.
Dude, we have the same. We have the same
list, man.
Same four somewhere.
Yeah. That's why I'm just nodding my head. Yeah.
Freddy versus Jason. It could use some cleaning up. There was so much more potential to be there, but it was still so good and so entertaining, and the concept is great.
Real quick, Jose. So the way that you're saying with Freddy versus Jason, you know how Freddy versus Jason is just like blasted for whatever reason, like it's unfairly criticized. That's why I'm with Alien Resurrection. Like, hey, I'll defend Freddy versus Jason. This is a decent movie. Okay, you go back, it hits everything I want it to be. It's got cool deaths. It's got that cool fight scene between them. It's got fun laughs. It's got realistic. It's got creative deaths. Not terrible acting. I know Kevin hates it on some of the casting. I didn't mind it as much.
I hated
But
on all
cool,
the casting.
but an interesting premise on it though. So
Yeah.
I don't mind Freddy versus Jason. I liked it. It was my
Oh,
number 4.
I love that
Yeah.
movie.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, that's one. Sometimes I'll just watch it on the zone, even when I'm not doing a rewatch of Nightmare on
Yeah.
Elm Street.
Yep.
Okay, so I think this is where we're gonna start getting the differences.
Yeah.
And stuff. So for the next one, I do have Dream Master, number 4, part 4 for this one here. Then I have the Dream Child after that one. Then from Dream Child, I have Freddy's Dead, number 6. Not great. It's only this high because the other two are worse to me. Then I have the Nightmare on Elm Street reboot.
Oh,
Not
over
good at
2.
all. But at least compared to Freddy's Revenge, this one, as much as it failed, at least tried to stay within the realm of like what Nightmare on Elm Street was meant to be, not like Freddy's Revenge that took a complete left turn and failed in making that left turn. That's what makes that one the worst one for me because it just doesn't fit at all.
I would say after Freddy vs. Jason, so we're all on agreement up until Freddy vs. Jason,
Yeah,
right?
same.
Yeah.
So after Freddy vs. Jason, I am wait, New Nightmare came before Freddy vs. Jason, right?
Yes.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that
okay.
was 3.
So then I'll say Freddy's Dead would be the next one for me. After Freddy's Dead, I would say
Freddy's Dead, which one? 6?
6.
yeah, I would say 6. And then
Those are
after
high.
Freddy's Dead, I would actually go part 2. I like part 2 more than 5 and 4 and 5, dude. I'm sorry. I don't know why. I think I just enjoyed it overall better. I felt a little bored in 5 and 4 and 5. And then I'll probably go 4, then 5, and then the remake.
Okay, so here's my controversial list. Okay, same 4. I'm gonna go 2.
Oh, you like part 2 better than Freddy's Dead?
Yeah. So I'm
Okay.
gonna go 2, 4, 5, 6, and remake. I
Okay.
hated 6. Hated 6. 4 and 5, same reason they're boring. 2, very different, but you know what? It did something different. So when I go back to rewatch Freddy's, I don't go back and usually watch all 9 movies. I watch 3, 7, 1, and Freddy versus Jason are the ones I tend to go back to and rewatch. 2's not bad. It's like a different cup of tea. You did something different with it.
Yeah.
I still remember it. And the cool visual, there was a couple of really cool prosthetic visuals that are awesome to see. And it was a darker tone. 4, 5, super boring. 6, hated it. And then the remake is just awful for me. Awful. Can't stand the reboot.
I don't
Bad.
like
I will. That's barely the second time in my life that I've seen it, and I don't even want to go back.
I mean, it's watchable, but it's not enjoyable.
Exactly.
Yeah.
There you go.
I did it for this rewatch for this episode, but unless it's for another episode, I will not be watching 2 again. I've always skipped it. I do a rewatch every year, and the last time I saw 2 was probably as a kid.
I think that's how Freddy would murder you. He would get
Yeah.
you. That's how Freddy's
Yeah.
gonna get you, Jose.
Yeah, you strap me down, Clockwork Orange, watching that movie over again.
All right. So
Just parakeet attacking me.
so if we do the future of the franchise, right? Like, is there any news on it? Like, are we getting anything in the future? And then who would you like to see casted?
Yeah. Well, I know I remember seeing the interview from Mike Flanagan. For those who don't know, he did a lot of those Netflix horror series, Haunting of Hill House, The Fall of Usher, which is the newest one. So he's really good at what he does. He actually came out, he said he has an idea for a Freddy movie that he really likes, and he really wants to pitch it. But him and his agent are running into the problem of where they don't know who to pitch it to, and they can't get any communication. Like he did for one of the series, he actually had the Nancy from the original. She was in that, and she
Heather
didn't even
Langenkamp.
know. Yeah. She didn't even know who to talk to, so he can pitch his ideas. So he still hasn't been able to pitch it. The problem is, and it's the same thing we're running with Friday the 13th. We ran into that. Tucky ran into that. It's the whole rights and who has the rights of this.
It's not even the
So
rights. You know who I would do? I would just contact Robert Englund because there's no Nightmare movie without him. So if you got him
Yeah.
on board, then I feel like whoever owned the rights would just dive right to it.
well, that's the thing. He already said he's retired from the role. He just physically can't do it. He's like 80
Well,
now at
there's
this
ways to
point.
do it.
Mhm.
You can use CGI. You can digitally recreate him.
Yeah,
Dude, they
but I'm
had
saying
Harrison Ford playing
yeah.
Indy.
No,
What I mean? Like they could make it work.
I agree, but he himself said he's done.
Yeah.
Because
Like he's
they
retired
don't
from
need
the
the
role.
makeup anymore. They don't
Yeah.
have to do the makeup no more.
Yeah.
I mean,
But
not as an
he
insult to his face. I
said
just mean
he's
like
done.
digitally.
Oh,
I did not mean
okay.
an
I thought you
insult to his
meant-
face. I just mean like the technology these days, they can
Yeah.
just create it digitally.
Oh,
That
yeah.
was not an insult to you, Mr. England. I
Yeah.
much respect, sir.
Yeah, I mean, it'd be great to have him, but he literally said he's done. Where we're at right now, from last I heard, is like, so I think it was 2019. The rights, the domestic rights, the U.S. rights, reverted back to the Wes Craven estate. So they have the U.S. rights, but the
Mm.
international rights are still under New Line.
Ooh,
So
so we can make it in China.
yeah, so pretty much for a movie to be remade properly, both sides have to be in agreement so you can have domestic and international distribution for this movie. So that's the difficulty. That's where we're at right now with this.
I
Okay.
That just gave me a wacky idea for who could play Freddy.
Who?
Jackie Chan. Can you imagine Jackie Chan is playing Freddy Krueger? Like that would be pretty awesome.
Now I understand why he's got the kung fu skills.
That's
Now
how he
it
knows the
makes
karate.
sense.
For Freddy Jason, and this was not my original idea. Someone mentioned this to me, and then I couldn't unsee it, and I was like, "This can work."
Who?
If it's not going to be Robert Englund, he's choice number one, of course.
Yeah.
But if someone else is going to do it, Kevin Bacon.
Yeah,
I heard
it.
Kevin Bacon too.
Yeah, he's shown. You look at his movie career. He's shown the charisma in his roles. That can match. We've also seen him play creepy, intimidating like type characters.
Mhm.
He's still young enough that he can do the physical aspects of it. So I feel that's someone that can recreate it best at
In
this
his
point in
own.
time.
And make it
He's
his
in
own
his
and still
60s
Yes.
it's
now,
like
isn't he?
same, it's like new but different. You know what I mean? But still the same.
Is he in his 60s now or like late 50s? Because
Should
he
be.
is older.
I thought
mean,
prime Nicholson, Jack Nicholson in
Prime
his
Nicholson,
prime would have
yeah.
been a great Freddy.
Yeah.
yeah, dude, he would. Okay, here's one that I have that's more current, that's younger enough to be able to maintain it. Obviously, it would be Robert Englund, first, second, and third choice. So I
Yeah.
don't want to see somebody else.
Yeah.
But if I had to, here's one that I wouldn't mind. Tom Hiddleston. He has a little bit of the
Okay.
comedic. You know what I'm saying? He's physically He's physically taller. He can play dark. We've seen him do Loki. So it would lean more in the kind of comedic, like what we got used to seeing. It wouldn't be so much the dark version that we got in part 1 or something, or a New Nightmare. But I can see Tom Hiddleston doing
I
it.
can see that too, but I feel like he's too lovable now. Like the audience loves him so much.
But
that they
Freddy
would
is too, though, right?
necessarily
We loved Freddy
Yeah.
too. Like
Yeah,
even Freddy
but I'm
versus
talking about
Jason,
the
he's
actor
lovable.
specifically, not the character.
Oh yeah. I
But
agree.
I know he would do great in the role.
Yeah.
I was thinking about this a lot, and I thought Christian Bale. I don't know why.
love
I was
Christian
like
Bale.
because when you're looking at him, you've heard so many stories of him freaking out on set and yelling at people. So when you see him, you're kind of waiting for him to lose it. You know what I mean? And so like I feel like he would, especially with like American Psycho, I just feel like he would play that kind of like crazy Freddy twisted character.
And he'd be doing method acting. So he'd just be really
Yeah.
scaring the crap
Would
out of
actually burn
everybody
his
on
face.
set.
Would actually burn his face.
Nice.
Actually,
So-
do you guys want to hear a really cool factoid
Yes.
about Robert Englund?
Yes.
So Halloween, one of my favorite movies, they filmed in southern Los Angeles, and it wasn't fall, so they had to create a fall atmosphere, and they took a bunch of leaves and they spray painted them orange. For every scene outside, they would run around and they would put the leaves everywhere, and then at the end of the scene they would go and rake them up. Robert Englund just came out and said that before he was a star, he actually worked on the set of Halloween and helped put the leaves out onto
Wow.
the yard and stuff. I'm like, whoa, even before he was Freddy, he was still providing a horror atmosphere in a way.
Started at the bottom, now we're here.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's right. I thought
That's
that was
cool,
really
man.
cool.
Nice.
Nice.
Awesome.
One other person that I thought of, I was also trying to think of a younger person just in case I want to go through. And I've seen this person play different types of characters and also play like a charismatic psycho. Sebastian Stan.
Okay.
Hmm.
I think I
Okay.
can see him. Yeah, I've seen him play some type of
Yeah, I can
characters
see
like
that.
that. Yeah,
Ooh.
I don't know how the look would be, but I think his acting wise,
See,
I think
Yeah.
he could pull it off.
that's what I
Th-
think it is because we talked about how if you're going to recast, you need a pivot. Now, the remake tried pivoting, but they pivoted in a way that we just didn't like. You can't get a Robert Englund duplicate. There is no one of him. You have to get somebody that leans into the strengths and the stuff that we liked while doing it their own way. That's
I
going to be
think
the key to doing this.
another one, he already played a horror villain, but Bill Skarsgård, I think, would do a good job. Pennywise actor. I
Yeah,
think that he
Yeah.
would. I think he would do decent in it. I mean, it
he
wouldn't
would
be
be
the first
very
choice,
good.
but he'd definitely scare you. I
Even
tell
his
you.
brother would be good.
Yeah.
Alex Skarsgård would be pretty good too.
Yeah, his
so.
dad, actually, his dad.
Yeah, there you go.
Just
I
get
mean,
all
he's
the
a lot older,
Skarsgårds.
but yeah, get
All of them. It's like
The
a
whole
three-headed
family of
dog,
Freddys.
Freddy.
The Freddy family.
Hope you liked our whole episode about the Nightmare on Elm Street franchise. We love talking about it, and we definitely love watching it. So please like, subscribe, comment, and share on our YouTube channel, Not a Strong Start. You can listen to us anywhere you listen to your podcast. You can follow us on Instagram and Twitter, Not a Strong Start. I'm your host, A Nightmare on Dan Street. You can follow me at King_Sangre.
I'm not your host. Welcome to Primetime, biatch. And you can find me at This Is Me Nombre on Instagram.
This time you looked at Kevin.
And you did look at me because I'm Freddy Got Fingered. And you can find me at Twin Pines Video or at the Movie Stash.